Good evening. It's been a while since I've done one of these. First of all, thank you to everybody who's emailed to say that they can make it for the protest on the 13th of May. So I am happy now to be able to confirm that the protest will take place on the 13th of May outside the Parliament in Edinburgh, we'll be gathering between 12:30 and 1. Entirely peaceful protest as always. Really looking forward to seeing everybody there. And secondly, a big thank you to the supporters who would not give up on Professor David Wilson and managed to get him to agree to take a look at the case. Thank you for that. As I said in my post yesterday, today marks exactly 19 years since the police descended in droves on Corinne's house and took Luke away, and he's still waiting to come home. He's never been home since. We now know so much more about the truth of the lead up to that day and everything that's happened since. And we are now at the stage, as most of you now know, that we found out that there are samples. I think any right-minded person would say those samples need to be tested. I don't think it matters which side of the fence you're on, whether you're somebody who believes Luke is guilty or somebody who believes Luke is innocent. Those samples need to be tested for basic justice. After a long conversation with Luke last night, he asked that I make this information public today. And I'll explain the reasons for that as we go along. But on the 11th, Wednesday, a letter was received with regard to these samples. So I'm just going to take you through that letter because I think it's very, very, very important information that people need to know. So here goes. The letter was dated the 31st of March. And the opening line is, "We refer to your correspondence dated 1st March 2023. So immediately, straight away, it took them 6 weeks. It took 6 weeks for us to get a response to that correspondence. And it goes on to say, "I can confirm that the undertaking provided by COPVIS and Police Scotland on the 16th November 2022 that no productions that remained held would be disposed of. And this undertaking still stands." Well, that's a good start. They're not going to destroy any of what's left for now. "The medical and forensic type samples are currently held by Police Scotland within a production storage facility in Edinburgh." Good. Now we have an idea of where they are. And this is where it gets interesting. "The case is considered as resolved, and any existing productions are the responsibility of Police Scotland. The decision as to whether or not examination can take place rests with Police Scotland. Rats in charge of the cheese. Any analysis or examination of the medical and forensic type samples would require to take place under strict guidelines and in a controlled manner in order to preserve the integrity of the evidence." Do you know, if this wasn't so serious, that would be funny. These are the people who destroyed 90% of the evidence and then said, "Oh, sorry, that was a mistake." To preserve the integrity of the evidence. And the other bit here, they would require to take place under strict guidelines and in a controlled manner. Wait, what did they think we were going to do? Take them down to the local high school, give them to the kids in the science lab and say, "Go on, have at it, see what you can find"? Of course not. We are talking top scientists, top laboratories, not just in the country, in the world. I will continue. The analysis or examination would require the supervision of a police officer and a member of SPA staff, Scottish Police Authority staff, and be conducted within an SPA lab. What? How does a police officer supervise a forensic scientist? They are two entirely different things. At the very least, Police Scotland would have to bring in their own forensic scientist to supervise what our forensics experts would be looking at. Secondly, be conducted in an SPA lab. We're looking at the most up-to-date processes, the most up-to-date equipment, the best testing we can possibly get for these samples. So how would we know that an SPA lab of their choosing would have that equipment and those standards? The answer is we don't. We don't. So what happens if we turn up on the day, or our scientists turn up on the day, and that laboratory does not have the equipment or the standards required? Are we just supposed to go ahead and test down to their standards? That, to me, and certainly to Luke, that is completely unacceptable. Given what they've done up until now, I don't think they have the right anymore to be dictating the terms of how these things are handled going forward. We would request a specific list detailing the productions required for examination, and only those items would be issued for examination. An indication of the time required is also requested in order to determine police and SPA capacity to be present at any examination. Okay, once again, first of all, they would only consider specific items. Why? We are not asking them to pay for it. Likewise, the laboratories. We're not asking them to pay for it. What harm would it do them to release them for testing if we're willing to pay for the testing? That's the first thing. This bit about an indication of time in order to determine police and SPA capacity to be present. Now, that's a trick. Let me unpackage that for you. That essentially sets up a situation where we go to them and we say, okay, let's have May 18th, 4 till 7. And they go, sorry, that day's not suitable. And we go, okay, let's have June 10th. Sorry, that day's not suitable. That could go on and on and on and on and on. And I have seen it do that in other cases. So why can't we just say, we'll give you these 3 dates, choose one of them, and then they meet us halfway? Why are they still holding all the cards, given how badly this has all gone up until now? Moving on. Just let this one sink in for a minute. Police Scotland will not provide any documentation in regards to previous examinations or results in relation to these productions. Why not? There are so many questions here. First of all, is there documentation in regards to previous examinations or results in relation to these productions? Because if there is, the defence didn't know about them. Or is that why they're not going to provide them? Because if they do, it would prove that these were not disclosed to the defence in the first place. Or could it be that they can't provide them because they've already destroyed them? Whichever way you look at this, why would they be unwilling to provide previous results or details of examinations? I've said for months, for years, if they've got nothing to hide, they should have nothing to fear. Why are they still hiding? make of that. Now we move on to the destruction of the evidence. In relation to the productions that were previously disposed of, the name of the officer authorising disposal was not applied to the spreadsheet which was provided to us on 21st February, as they are no longer an employee of Police Scotland. What does that have to do with anything? They were an employee of Police Scotland when they authorised the destruction. That's all that matters. What sort of excuse is they're no longer an employee of Police Scotland? What does that have to do with anything? An employee of Police Scotland authorised that destruction. We want to know who that was and on whose authority they acted. We need to know. We have a right to know. This same officer had authorised the disposal and had signed the documentation in respect of this instruction. Aha! So now we are scapegoating a single officer. He decided and he signed it off. Now, I don't believe for a minute a random officer one day had himself a meltdown and said, yes, I know, I'm going to go off to Edinburgh and I'm going to get all those samples and I'm going to take them away and I'm going to tell somebody to destroy them. And nobody asked any questions. Come on, we're not that stupid. It then goes on to say, the productions were signed out from the production store in Edinburgh on 26 May 2021, and the documentation held within the store was signed accordingly. First off, I don't believe that's entirely true. I think we have information that suggests it's not entirely true. But again, show us the documentation. Stop telling us this was done and that was done, and show us. I mean, we can't take this just on trust anymore. They have shown us we can't trust them. Give us the information. Give us the documents. Give us the samples. Now let's go back to our police officer that's no longer an employee of Police Scotland. So the productions were signed out on the 26th of May 2021, so just after the documentary. And we caught them in November 2022, still destroying evidence. It's 19 months. At what point did the officer who authorised the destruction cease to be an employee of Police Scotland? You don't imagine by any remote possibility it was sometime after November 2022 by any chance? Again, we need to know. Finally, however, there are no records held detailing the exact dates of when these items were disposed of. No records. So our rogue police officer, who's one day gone off and gathered up all the stuff and said it's to be destroyed, then dumps it somewhere and says, get on with it, destroy it, and walks away. And from that point in, nobody anywhere keeps any records of when things are being destroyed, how they're being destroyed, for what reason they're being destroyed. Is that good enough? Is that good enough? Last sentence, and I have to read this one because, once again, if this were not so serious, it would be funny. I hope this information is helpful. And if you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. Now, the reason Luke wanted this to go out, the reason I'm doing this tonight, is to say to you guys, this is what they are trying to fob us off with. This is what they are trying to pretend is acceptable. But they're doing it in your names. They're doing it on your behalf. They are policing for you with your consent. Do you agree? Is this what you want them to do? Is this how you want them to do it? Because the bottom line is, if we don't hold them accountable now, if we can't put a stop to this now, then we have given them carte blanche. They can do this anywhere, at any time, to anybody in the future. And that means you, or somebody you love, a member of your family. But worse than that, even, is what they're saying is, we think it's appropriate to, I'm just going to use the term, to bullshit people, to cover up for our own wrongdoing, even at the cost of justice to a murdered 14-year-old girl, and even at the ongoing cost of freedom to a once 14-year-old boy. The idea that they can still call the shots, the idea that they can simply say, nah, we don't know who did it and we don't know who authorised it, it doesn't really matter. In what reality is that acceptable? In what reality can we be allowed to continue to get away with that? Now, we don't know what the next steps are going to be with this, obviously, in terms of the legality. We're going to have to take a great deal of advice on how best to go forward with this. But we have a protest on May 13th, which was originally centrally a meeting, a gathering to say to them, we know, you know, we're watching, we're not going away. We now have an extra message. And that message, once again, has to be not in our names. You can't be peeing on our backs and telling us it's raining. It's not acceptable. We want the samples, and we want our scientists to be able to set the parameters so that the testing is done as openly and as best it possibly can be. Because we need the truth. We need answers. We need those answers for Jodie. We need them for Luke. We need them for us, ordinary people, to know that the people we trust to take care of us, the people we trust to go after the bad guys and protect the good guys, have got that the right way round. Because if they haven't, none of us are safe. None of us. So I do apologise that this update was not better news. We did think it was very, very important. We are not going to, we've played by the rules for years, kept all their correspondence confidential, not put things into the public domain because that was all the legal advice and everything else. Played by those rules for nearly 20 years. And where did it get us? Nowhere. Keeping this stuff confidential now does nothing to protect Luke. It does nothing to protect the case. The only people it's protecting are the people who are getting it wrong again and again and again. So no more. We will be going public with developments as they happen, like this one. There's not a great deal more I can say except thank you all so much for all the support and for keeping this going as long and as much as you've kept it going up until now. And we will come back with updates on applications for samples for testing and how that goes as and when they happen. But in the meantime, thank you all for joining me on a Friday evening. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend, and I look forward to seeing everybody on May 13th. Thanks a lot.